When my dad started Bergfleet, I was never in competition with him, and he was never in competition with me. The only difference is he sold meat, he sold everything for cash, and I sold everything. I sold a lot of it on credit, and we never competed. But I felt I had to show him that I could also. This shop, Bergfleet, was much bigger. It just exploded into a big business overnight. It wasn't a case of working up a slow business. It just exploded into a big business at night. And I decided that I would also like to make my butchery in Muizenberg, or our butchery in Muizenberg. I also would like to develop it. And I started to get more and more experience in the supply of meat to the catering trade, in particular to the hotels in Muizenberg. And I want to tell you that I worked very hard.
How well did you do?
I did very well, but I worked very hard. I worked in the season. I worked 17 to 20 hours a day, and I'm not exaggerating. I used to start working at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning, and finish at 8, 9 o'clock at night on many, many, many occasions.
What happened with the business?
It got bigger and bigger. It got bigger and bigger. I also started in the late 70s. I could see the late 70s. I could see with the advent of expedient travel by air over the world, people were starting to come to Muizenberg for shorter periods. A month used to be cut down to 2 weeks, and even less, and sometimes a week. And Muizenberg never went down, but the frequency of people coming to Muizenberg started to diminish. And the seasons, sort of the hotel and holiday seasons, which we depended on to a great extent, were getting smaller and smaller. And I decided to sort of spread my wings to the rest of what they call Cape Town. And being a novice in the game as far as business is concerned, and only picking up things from the University of Life as things went on, I decided I wanted to supply more and more people. So what I did was I decided to supply the best, because if you supplied the best, you wouldn't have to worry so much about them paying you. So without going to mention names, I started with a hotel business, and I started tackling the big, there weren't stars in those days, but today what are known as all the 5 and 6 stars and 4 stars throughout the peninsula as far as Sea Point, and I started a small daily delivery service to the rest of the peninsula, which blossomed and blossomed and blossomed, and it got bigger and bigger, and my premises got smaller and smaller. After my dad's untimely passing in 1981, there was a piece of ground adjacent to the Sorrento buildings where our business was, which used to be a hotel, many, many years ago. It was called the Seacombe Hotel, and that had a fire. And after the fire, the hotel was eventually broken down, and there was just a raw piece of ground. Shortly after I got married, my dad decided to buy that piece of ground and keep it for stoch, as they call it. And he did, and he bought that piece of ground for me. And shortly after he died, a few months after he died, I decided I needed bigger premises, and I built a building. The building was a 3-story building. It had to be 3 stories because the ground was very small. It was, as they say in Afrikaans, a bietjie ongemakkelijk, but we had a lift there, and we managed, and we did even better and better, and developed it more and more. And in fact, in those days, we were supplying throughout the peninsula even into the peripherals of the country area. I must tell you, about a year or so, very important, a year or so after my dad opened this Bergdale meat market, I mean, our eyes were open and we could see customers who owed us thousands on the book in Muizenberg were all shopping for cash at this new Pick and Pay. So, and we could see that those would think that was the way to go. And about a year or so later, we converted the Saks Delicacies, as it was then known, into Saks Discount Food Market. And as they say in Afrikaans, monkey see, monkey do. So we also, in our small way, in Muizenberg, we also decided to terminate accounts, and it took us several years to collect in, and in fact we didn't collect in everything, but several years to collecting what people owed us, and we converted to a supermarket. We refashioned it, and it wasn't as big as these big ones, but we had a tremendous range of groceries which we sold at very, very competitive prices. And we started doing advertising in the paper, and we used to do gimmick advertising. And I remember when we converted on that day, on a particular date, we put big adverts in the paper, and we were like selling, I remember one particular thing, vinegar at 1 cent a bottle, and various things like that. I sold stuff at cost, and cash flow used to improve tremendously. And my parents, myself, we all went on very well in this fast expanding business till about sort of late 70s, where I thought my mother was working too hard, and we thought we would, my parents decided, I think, let's sell the business, let's sell the grocery business, because the meat business is what I was all about. And so we sold the grocery business. The sale of the grocery business, we sold the grocery business to an Indian man. And you will remember that it was an offense to sell a business in a white area to a member of another race. I was very against this, and we thought of ways to overcome it. And I am proud to say that I associated myself in circumventing the law at the time, and we sold the business to the Indian man who had a nominee, and I remained on as the manager. Don't think I didn't have any trouble from this. We had trouble. In fact, a year or so later, I was investigated by the commercial branch because it was a massive offense to have done this. But they couldn't prove anything, and it remained in Indian hands until this very day. And fortunately, apartheid is out, and everything in that respect is hunky-dory.